You will play as a campus ecology master in this game, striving to collect a diverse range of creatures and accumulate the most ecological energy in your constructed school ecosystem, in order to win. Be mindful that environmental changes and human activities can affect the survival of creatures, potentially resulting in significant losses in your ecosystem. Game components. There are 1 rulebook, 6 game board sheets, 6 rule cards, 169 creatures cards, and 27 event cards. Rule card. This card explains the game rules, the scoring system, and the food chains used as references for exchanging creature cards. Creature cards. The creature cards are categorized as producers, primary consumers, secondary consumers, and tertiary consumers based on their roles in the food chain. Decomposers break down organic matter into inorganic matter, providing a source of nutrients for producers. Detritivores break down dead matter and feces, helping decomposers work more efficiently. Our game features 26 common creatures found on Taiwan's campuses as game protagonists. It offers players the opportunity to learn about native Taiwan species as well as common invasive species. Event cards, nature events. Early summer rainy season, each player gains 2 producer cards and 1 decomposer card. Breeding season, each player gains 1 consumer card of each level category in their possession. Spring blossoms, each player gains 1 producer card and 1 primary consumer card. Typhoon slamming, each player loses 1 primary consumer card and 1 secondary consumer card. Additionally, each player gains 1 decomposer card. Days of high temperature and no rain, each player loses 3 producer cards and 1 decomposer card. Earthquake, each player loses 1 consumer card of each level category in their possession. Event cards, human activities, environmental destruction. Littering, each player loses 1 primary consumer card. Pesticide spraying, each player loses 2 primary consumer cards. Herbicide spraying, each player loses 3 producer cards and 1 primary consumer card. Setting traps, each player loses 1 secondary consumer card and 1 tertiary consumer card. Poison baiting, each player loses 1 consumer card of each level category in their possession. Introduction of invasive alien species, each player loses 1 detritivore card and 1 secondary consumer card. Environmental conservation. Flower and plant planting, each player gains 1 producer card and 1 primary consumer card. Establishing a conservation zone, each player gains 1 consumer card of each level category in their possession. Ecological inspection, the game ends and enters the scoring phase. Game board. A game board represents a school ecosystem, where you can place the collected creatures in their corresponding positions to construct a thriving environment. A complete food chain requires both producers and consumers to establish a self-sufficient and balanced ecosystem. Step 1. Setting up the card area. Shuffle the event cards separately for nature events and human activities, and then place them face down in their respective decks. Shuffle the creature cards for each category and place them face up in their respective decks. Step 2. Setting up initial resources for players. 3 producer cards and 1 primary consumer card and 1 rule card and 1 game board sheet for an ecological pyramid. Step 3. Starting the game and taking turn actions. Decomposition, planting, conservation, and breaking. Action decomposition. Increasing the number of decomposers can provide more nutrients for producers. The player can take one decomposer card from the deck. Note that there can be a maximum of 2 decomposer cards on the game board. Action planting. Increasing the number of producers can provide more energy for the ecosystem. The player can take 3 producer cards from the deck. The action is not allowed if there are already 10 or more producer cards on the game board. Action planting. Increasing the number of producers can provide more energy for the ecosystem. If the player has n decomposer cards, they can obtain 3 plus n producer cards in this turn. If the player also has detritivore cards, they can obtain 3 plus 2n producer cards in this turn. Action conservation. Providing sufficient food can attract more creatures to the ecosystem. Primary conservation. The player can exchange 3 producer cards for 1 primary consumer card. Secondary conservation. The player can exchange 2 primary consumer cards for 1 secondary consumer card. Tertiary conservation. The player can exchange 2 secondary consumer cards for 1 tertiary consumer card. When exchanging cards, only the top card from the deck can be taken. Action breaking. Adding detritivores can accelerate the decomposition process. The player can exchange 1 secondary consumer card for 1 detritivore card. When exchanging cards, only the top card from the deck can be taken. Action migration. Constructing a friendly ecological environment can attract higher-level creatures to settle in. If a complete food chain can be formed between the creatures in your ecosystem and another player's tertiary consumer, you can take the tertiary consumer card from the other player and add it to your own ecosystem. Migration is not allowed if the other player also has a complete food chain in their ecosystem. Step 4. Draw an event card and perform its effects. Human activities. Setting traps. Each player loses 1 secondary consumer card and 1 tertiary consumer card. Nature events. Early summer rainy season. Each player gains 2 producer cards and 1 decomposer card. Repeat steps 3 and 4 until the end of the 3rd round or until the ecological inspection event card is drawn, triggering the end of the game and final scoring. Step 5. Scoring. Once all gameplay rounds are completed or the ecological inspection event card is drawn, the game enters the scoring phase. Players' points are calculated based on base points and bonus points, and the player with the highest score wins the game. Base points, biodiversity. Add up the collected ecological energy, but do not count the same kind of energy more than once. Bonus points, ecological stability. The more complete the food chain, the higher the score. Advanced gameplay. Once players are familiar with the game rules, they can use blank cards to expand the card decks and create custom cards for creatures and events. Consider what else that could be incorporated into the game. Are there any other creatures that inhabit in the school environment? What other events could potentially occur? Are there any other methods for environmental conservation? Let's try to be a campus ecology master.